Awesome. All right, everybody. Well, thank you so much for showing up. For those of you who were able to plug in, I'm going to go ahead and make co-hosts here just to keep things easier. Hey, Terry, I'll actually make you co-host. You can help me out. You know what you're doing. All righty. So thank you, everybody, for showing up. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen and we'll get started. Started off a little late. I know there was some technical issues getting started, but without further ado, we'll go ahead and get started. Again, thanks everyone for showing up. So this is our first ever RSP events where we're going to focus on how to beat inflation and maximizing your investments and beating inflation. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen here and we'll get started. For those of you who aren't really familiar who I am and how I got into this business, I started off in the industry actually 7 years ago as an advisor. But prior to that, I was actually working for the bank where I spent 7 years working for the Bank of Montreal. And I just felt that I needed to change. I wanted to be able to do something different that was going to offer me more freedom, more flexibility, more time with the family, and really just being able to be in a position where I was able to help others with their personal finances and their situation. And I got introduced to this industry by a friend of mine, like I said, 7 years ago. And I haven't looked back since. It's been honestly one of the best decisions I've made. Started off with Sun Life, and then I transitioned to Experior Financial Group about little over 5 years ago in November of 2018. And it's really taught me a lot in regards to people's finances as far as making sure they have the right protection in place, making sure their money's invested properly, helping them hit their goals and dreams on time. So really just covers all aspects. So that's a little bit about my story. I'm married, have 3 kids. Yeah, we're just, business is just growing. Just super blessed. I'm a believer and, strong faith in God. So that's a little bit about my story, my life. But without further ado, guys, we're going to go ahead and get started. Again, the topic is RSPs and how to beat inflation by maximizing your investments. So let's go ahead and get started here. So first off, what is an RSP? Well, an RSP is a registered retirement savings plan, and it started in 1957. An RSP is a retirement savings plan that you establish, that we register, and to which you or your spouse or common law partner contribute. Deductible RSP contributions can be used to reduce your tax. Any income you earn in the RSP, any income that you earn in the RSP is usually exempt from tax as long as the funds remain in the plan. You generally have to pay tax when you receive payments from the plan. So I highlighted a few key points. There's more benefits, but these are the key points that I highlighted pertaining to the benefits of an RSP. So the first one is RSP contributions reduce your taxable income. You can withdraw early to buy a house or go back to school. RSP deductions are deferrable. You can convert your RSP to a RIF or annuity. Spousal RSPs, split shared income, and RSP investments can earn compound interest. So let's take a deeper dive in regards to each one of those. So the first one, contributions reduce your taxable income. So the first advantage of putting money into your RSP is that each contribution reduces your net taxable income. Money held within an RSP, both the amount you contribute and any gains your investments realize, is also sheltered from tax until you withdraw. If you take your RSP funds out when you retire, it's likely you'll be in a lower tax bracket and will have to pay less tax. So make sure to contribute at the right time. So obviously here in Ontario or in Canada, each year the CRA gives you an additional 60 days to contribute to your RSP. So that accounts towards the previous tax year. So in our case, all what you've earned in 2023, the deadline to contribute towards your RSP is February 29th of this year because it's a leap year. So you get those extra 60 days. So take advantage of that. So that's the first benefit that you receive. Now, the second benefit is you can withdraw early to buy a house or go back to school. If you saved in an RSP for a few years, but you have plans to buy a house or go back to school, the federal government offers Canadians 2 programs that allow for early pre-retirement withdrawals from an RSP on a tax-free basis. The amounts have to be paid back within a specific time frame. So with RSPs, there is an amount that if you decide to withdraw from it, because it's tax deferred, it's not tax free. You are required, if you take it out early, to either pay a penalty or to pay back the taxes. Now, when you follow any of these two guidelines, whether it be a first-time home buyers plan or the lifelong learning plan, you get exempted from those taxes, but there is a time frame you have to pay it back. Sorry. So for the home buyers plan, the home buyers withdraw, just say up to $35,000, which is the max that you can withdraw. The funds must be paid back within 15 years, with payments starting the second year after taking out the money. The lifelong learning plan. This allows full-time students to withdraw up to $10,000 per year, up to a maximum of $20,000 to be paid back within 10 years without being taxed. So benefit number 3, RSP deductions are deferrable. So you may choose to defer the deduction and claim it in a future year. You would want to do this if you expect to be in a higher income tax bracket in the next few years. So number 4, you can convert your RSP to a RIF. So what's a RIF? It's a registered retirement income fund. So you have the opportunity to convert your RSP to either a RIF or an annuity. That's just another stream of income that you get at retirement. So your RSP reaches maturity on December 31st of the year you turn 71. And at this point, you're required to withdraw the funds for retirement. You can either do one of the following. You can take a lump sum payment, which will be subject to withholding tax, and add it to your income for the year. You can convert your RSP to a RIF, which requires you to make annual minimum withdrawals that are included in your taxable income each year, but are not subject to withholding tax. Or you can purchase an annuity, which offers a guaranteed income for life or a specified period not subject to withholding tax, but you may have to pay tax on the income. So those are your options as far as when you're converting it. Now, number 5, right? And sometimes people are in, they're married and they're in situations where one spouse is the breadwinner, the next is the homemaker, and it can be husband or wife, doesn't matter. But sometimes, or even one spouse could be making a substantial amount of income while the other one is on the lower end. This allows you to split your RSPs, your RSP contributions. So for couples where one spouse earns a higher income than the other, a spousal RSPs allows the partner with the higher income to contribute to an RSP in their spouse's name and receive the tax deductions themselves. So these plans also offer tax advantages to families during retirement by letting spouses split income more evenly. And then the last benefit, RSP investments can earn compound interest. So this is key, especially in our society today, where the purchasing cost has gone up. With being able to invest your money, there's multiple different ways, but starting to contribute to your RSP regularly via a lump sum or regular contributions will also allow you to benefit from compounding interest. So there's something that we call in the investment world dollar cost averaging, and it's where you're basically able to contribute on a more frequent basis, whether that be monthly, biweekly, weekly, and you're able to basically take advantage of the market's ups and downs. So being able to do those regular contributions, it allows you to take advantage of the compound interest because your initial investment and interest payments remain within the plan and are reinvested. Your rate of return is applied to a growing balance, allowing your investment to grow faster over time. The earlier you start putting money into your RSP, the longer your contributions and the interest they earn have the opportunity to compound, growing on a tax-deferred basis until you withdraw the funds in retirement. So sometimes we talk to people who are in their early 20s and they're just like, should I invest at this point or should I open up an RSP? Is it too early? Whether it be a tax-free savings account or an RSP, it's never too early to start investing. Because of the rule of 72 and because of that compound interest, you get to take advantage of the market's ups and downs from an earlier age, and that compounding effect will work to your favor over the course of all those years. So you want to jump into it as quick as possible. So let's look at setting up an RSP. How does that look like? So RSPs can set up through a number of different ways. It can be set up through a financial institution such as a bank, a credit union, trust, or an insurance company. So I myself, with Experior Financial Group, we're a financial service brokerage, and we work with multiple insurance companies. On the investment side, we also obviously work with different banks and different financial institutions. But like we mentioned, there's different ways that you can open them up. So a person, and one of the things that one of the things that people always ask me is, I already have a TFSA or I already have an RSP. Can I set up another one? The answer is yes. You can have multiple RSPs, right? You just can't exceed your yearly contribution limit. So the contribution limit is the lesser of the two. So it's either 18% of your earned income in the previous year, or it's for 2023, it's at the annual limit of $30,780, and for 2024, it's actually at $31,560. So let's just look at it as an example, right? If you made $100,000, then 18% would be $18,000 that you'd be able to contribute. So you wouldn't be able to contribute to 30,780 because the 18% is less. If you were making 200,000 and you looked at the 18%, it would actually be 36,000. So in this case, the $30,780 would be the amount that you'd be able to contribute as a maximum amount, should you decide to contribute. So let's look at inflation now, because with inflation, that's really going to determine how your money should be invested if you want to be able to take advantage of a substantial income once you retire, right? So to be able to beat inflation, we must know what inflation is and what interest rate does it perform at. So the current inflation rate is at 3.5%. And inflation is a rise in prices, which can be translated as the decline of purchasing power over time. The rate at which purchasing power drops can be reflected in the average price increase of a basket of selected goods and services over time. The rise in prices, which is often expressed as a percentage, means that a unit of currency effectively buys less than it did in prior periods. Inflation can be contrasted with deflation, which occurs when prices decline and purchasing power increases. So basically, the long and short is inflation is the de-evaluation of your money, right? So how do we combat against that? Well, let's look at that. Well, first, let's kind of dive deeper into inflation, right? Like the way it works is, in this example right here, let's look at the example in 1970 if you had a cup of coffee. So in 1970, that cup of coffee would have been worth 25 cents. 10 years later, it's gone up by 20 cents. It's at 45 cents. Another 10 years has gone by, and it went up by 30 cents, 75 cents now. Year 2000, it's $1. It went up 4 times in 30 years, right? Then we get to 2010, it's $1.25, and in 2022, it's $1.85. The same cup of coffee has gone up $1.60, right? The coffee hasn't changed, but because of the price of what the cost of $1, that's gone up. So now your buying power has lessened. So how do we compete? How do we combat against that? Well, this is where compound interest comes into effect, right? Compound interest, for those of you who aren't aware, there's a rule that was put out. It's called the Rule of 72. And the Rule of 72 is a quick and useful formula that is popularly used to estimate the number of years required to double the invested money at a given annual rate of return. Alternatively, it can compute the annual rate of compounded return from an investment given how many years it will take to double the investment, right? So let's take a deeper dive in that. So what does that look like? So if you take 72 and you divide it by the rate of return. So sometimes you go to the bank or whatever, you have a tax-free savings account, you have an RRSP, and the interest rate that may be given, like I know when I was at the bank, I had a TFSA there, I was getting a 1.5% rate of return. My RSP was getting about a 3% rate of return, right? So in this scenario, you take 72 and you divide it by the interest rate, which is 3%, which will equal 24 years. So when we actually take a deeper dive into this and use an actual scenario, if you took $10,000, let's just say you invested $10,000 today and you let it sit there, you never invest another dollar. You don't do the regular deposits. You just say, I'm just going to let it sit there. And they're giving you a 1.5% rate of return. It'll literally take you 48 years before that 10,000 turns to 20. Now, in this scenario, 3%, your money's going to double every 24 years. So by the time it gets to the 48, it's at 40 grand. 6%, every 6 years, sorry, every 12 years. And at 12%, every 6 years is doubling. By the end of it, you're gonna have 2.5 million, right? So it pays to make sure you're doing your due diligence and you're talking to the right people, because a lot of times people just go to wherever they feel comfortable, where they know, like they see the bank, so they feel that's the best way to go to. And there's nothing wrong with the banks, but sometimes it's good to speak to a broker, to do your due diligence, to make sure you are able to get the most bang for your buck, because at the end of the day, it's your money. And the last thing you want is to get to that age of retirement and your money runs out. So that's one of the things that we offer here. So what now? So if you haven't already set up a plan or know what your financial independence number is, or your FIN number, reach out to an advisor today. Here at Experior, we'll put together a complimentary comprehensive financial plan that is hand-tailored and customizable to you. Here at Experior, we're actually partnered with 26 different carriers to make sure you're able to retire financially independent without relying on the government, friends, or families for your finances. These are some of the carriers that we work with here, guys. So this allows us to get the maximum rate of return on your investments. So that way you're not struggling having your money invested in something that's doing less than inflation. And by the time you retire, you actually needed more than you thought you needed, right? So that's pretty much it for me, guys. So that's pretty much it for me. So I just want to take the time and thank you guys for showing up. I know we had some little bit of technical difficulties at the end, but again, thank you so much. This is my information on the screen here. But yeah, before we end things off, do any of you guys have any questions? Feel free to either raise your digital hand or show your camera, and you can go ahead and raise your hand if you have any questions. You can throw it in the chat. See here.
That was a great overview, Tyrone.
Oh, thanks, Terry. Appreciate it. Awesome. All right, guys. Well, if there's no questions, we'll wrap things up here. I just want to thank you guys for taking the time to sit down with me today. And we will be doing these on either a monthly or a bi-monthly basis. So we'll definitely keep you informed. Again, just thank you so much for taking the time and sitting down with me. My name is, again, Tyrone Hines with Experior Financial Group. And we will talk soon, guys. You have a great night.
Thank you.
Thanks, Terry. Good seeing you.
Bye-bye.